Hello! As you might be well aware, my wife and I just had a baby. Ha-ha! Well, my wife did, obviously. But not too long ago, our little Charlotte was splish-splashing around in some amniotic fluid, that very primordial water of that most nascent component of what we call life. Funny how we always associate that water with the feminine, but ancient religion's primary water deities were blokes, indeed. This is Swimmers, I mean, Speaker's Corner. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Speaker's Corner. I am your host, Tim Byron, and today we will be talking about a really cool video on our sister, father? Channel, yes, Almighty Answers. The technical wizards and witches behind the videos on this here channel have conjured a virtual reality for you to ensorcel yourself underwater, exploring Atlantis. Oh my, that fictional city of wonder beneath the waves that has evaded many a historian and explorer. The dream of Plato, indeed. But we'll get to that shortly. Before we submerge ourselves into Atlantis, although I highly recommend you do so at Almighty Answers, as it is quite enchanting. In today's video, we will discuss a few of the primary water deities before sinking ourselves into the depths of Atlantis. Blimey, how many water puns can I fit into one episode? Oh, soaking. Right, speaking of amniotic fluid, what better way to start than with the first civilization's water god? Of course, begin at the beginning, as one does. Let's start the proceedings with that Sumerian god of water, Enki. Our friend at Almighty Answers has covered a very small portion of the subject, but a brief summary is that Enki started off as the god of fresh water. Lakes, rivers, creeks, you don't know what fresh water is. This persona devolved into more of a trickster deity. No, not you, although there will be a sublime tutorial shortly to draw you in an infant phase, which is not altogether less mature than your current form. Be sure to catch that when it comes out on this channel. As if you need more attention. Now, Enki actually started off in his original incarnation, in deification, as the god of amniotic fluid and semen. Seed. Don't spill any. The fluffy guy gets very upset. It's not too surprising given how we associate water with life, the birthing process and the like, even though Enki translates to Lord of the Earth, and birth may rhyme with earth, but the gift of life and its production is more like the oceans. Therefore, Enki, in this phase of his mythological nascency, was an emblem for fertility and appears as a half-goat, half-fish animal. Remind you of something? That's right, you clever Capricorns. Have it. It's your sign. Even though zoology is absolutely bloody piffle. He was also responsible for giving the gods their jobs as if he were the Sumerian social services, as well as placing national borders on maps. You have to wonder if that would cause any concerns. I mean, maps, borders, countries, languages. He also created men to be slaves for the gods. Surely that did not set a bad precedent. You better go and ask the fluffy guy on Almighty Answers. We move on from Sumeria to ancient Greece, the cradle of civilization to the cradle of democracy, although that is in dispute and only really a proverbial statement. Perhaps that will be a subject for a future episode. Nevertheless, you should all know who the god of waters is according to the Greeks, no? Well, of course, it's Poseidon, lord of the seas, even though his name might actually translate to lord of the earth, much like Enki's. However, this lord is more of the relationship between a lord and lady, as in the husband. Poseidon's symbol is the trident, which he received from the three Cyclopes, according to Hesiod. These three also created Hades' helmet and Zeus's thunderbolts. Something, 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 bow to the might of Zeus. Oh, ignore me. Not forever, but just for that small lapse. Right, Poseidon, the primary Greek water deity and god of horses and earthquakes. Yes, earthquakes. Despite being the water god, Poseidon was a real hothead and generally irate, hence his affiliation with earthquakes. He suffered few fools, or anyone else for that matter, either mortal or immortal, and was rather bloody fed up with Zeus's arrogance and, frankly, who wouldn't be? Not to mention the king god's deplorably rapey behaviour and horrendous paternal tendencies, but that could be the subject of quite a few future episodes. No, go away like your ruddy, pathetic blog. Not that Poseidon was any better, considering how he also lusted after many an unwilling lass, some including his own sisters. One such conquest was Amphitrite, a Nereid or sea nymph, and she gave birth to our next subject, Triton. Triton was a god, but in merman form, who carried around a conch shell that he could use to subdue the waves at his will. He was essentially the messenger of the seas, although who would want to relay some of the messages that ornery git Poseidon had, considering his tendencies? He had some children, but no lovelorn red-headed teenage daughter whose best friend was a sentient fish, alas. Now that brings us to Atlantis proper. Atlantis, that forlorn paradise, that unreachable perfection of a society doomed to failure. The story originates, according to Plato, not Plato, he's not ruddy moulding putty for children, who tells the fable of Atlantis through a fictional narrator. The story goes that Socrates requested that three of his fellow philosophers meet him on a day celebrating Athena: Timaeus, Hermocrates and Critias. This latter chap was the first to meet with the wise master, who then promptly told the tale of how his own grandfather met Solon, who was a poet and lawgiver in his own right, and one of the 7 sages. That's capital S on both 7 and sages, so we clearly know it's a big deal, much like Superman's logo. Although we're talking about Atlantis, which is literally Aquaman's domain, not so much Superman's, but hey, mind you, that Solon lived 300 years before Plato's time, so this Critias must have been quite old. Anyway, Solon had gone to Egypt, as one does, started comparing his civilization's gods with theirs. To be fair, he did meet with some Egyptian priests, so yeah, it makes sense. Enter a person's place of work, and inevitably that person's work will be a topic of conversation. Kind of normal stuff. Solon and the Egyptian priests compared legends along with their gods because, well, why not? Although they wouldn't necessarily view these tales as legends as we do for obvious reasons. But one of these stories was that of Atlantis. According to Plato's retelling of this narrative, Atlantis existed up until 9,600 years BCE. It was an immensely powerful and technologically advanced nation that over a day and night sank into the ocean, thus enticing historians since Plato's time for almost 2,400 years. It was an island nation, larger than both Libya and Asia Minor, consisting of concentric rings varying between land and water in the Atlantic Ocean, beyond the Strait of Gibraltar, which back then were the Pillars of Heracles. Pillars of Heracles. Indeed. Atlantis had kings and a constitution that shared a lot of similarities to those in Plato's Republic. What a coincidence. This island nation had an advanced and efficacious irrigation system with fertile soil, leading to a people who could build and create quite well, crafting lavish buildings with baths, barracks and harbour installations galore. These would be necessary for a burgeoning army that would eventually conquer Africa up to Egypt and around Europe through to parts of modern-day Italy. Mamma mia! Tutti frutti tagliatelle. Atlantis' protector? Why, none other than the truculent numpty Poseidon, whose son Atlas would become the country's eponymous king. The country shared a lot of similarities to Plato's Greece, such as Hellenistic rituals like their prayers, sacrifice, and bull baiting. Touchy subject, that one. Yes, I'm not sure we're going to go in for a bit of bull baiting. Unless you're in Pamplona, in which case my money's on the bull. It was the perfect society of its time and grew in strength, but this growth resulted in a trade-off of their scruples. The stronger it became and the more of the globe it conquered, the worse its people were in their bellicosity. Right, keep calm and carry on. This tendency to want to conquer, and subsequently all that war, led to Atlantis trying to take over this tiny yet mighty city-state by the name of Athens, the little Aegean that could, with the help of other countries, beat back the Atlanteans, and that led to a terrible wrath of gods given earthquakes and floods that eventually sunk the mythical land into the sea and the annals of legend. There, Atlantis has remained until that enchanting VR video on the almighty Answers channel. Well, unless you count a slew of fiction, including movies, books, and video games, amongst others. In fact, I remember Patrick Duffy. Yes, Patrick Duffy of what's it called? Dallas fame. He died in Dallas and then was reborn as the man from Atlantis. Webbed toes, webbed fingers, could breathe underwater. It was terrible. Part of Atlantis' allure is that it's not entirely implausible, despite it being very unlikely to have actually existed. It's almost certainly not a physical location, a lost society that merits continued exploration to discover, but in all likelihood, simply an allegory that Plato wanted to tell. Some of his students actually believed it existed, whereas others knew it was more of a parable. Aristotle himself joked that Plato could conjure nations out of thin air only to destroy them. I want to drink your blood. Oh, those rascally ancient Greek philosophers. The story of Atlantis was more to convey the triumph of brain over brawn, of righteousness over might, the plucky intellect over savage puissance. The farmers against the sailors, humility over opulence and arrogance, philosophy and spirit over science and engineering, which were apparent in Plato's Athens versus Persia or even Carthage at the time. The destruction at the end is the chef's kiss to indicate that such aspirations are fleeting and that might does not lead to right, that doing good and doing well are harmonious for a true utopia, no matter how advanced technologically the society may be. It's almost as if he were philosophizing about something. Brexit? Anybody? No? Okay, let's move on. Since then, the legend has grown as numerous authors, historians, archaeologists, and others have sought an actual Atlantis. Some claim to have found evidence of the actual Atlantis, not of the VR variety, but breadcrumbs like curious rock formations under the sea, a prehistoric city along the coast of Spain to raise an eyebrow or two. However, the likeliest culprit to anything resembling the utter destruction to bring down an island would be that of Santorini, a Greek island whose volcanic eruption led to a tsunami that could have led to the end of the Minoans on Crete. Huh. I've got baby duties to give my wife Saki a well-deserved respite. She's off to get a richly earned bath. Speaking of which, I hope you enjoyed our foray into water deities and the story of Atlantis as you plumb its depths on the Almighty Answers channel's VR video, whose link you can find here. Relax, have a swim, and enjoy yourselves. Ta-ta, darlings. Until next time, and as always, make sure to subscribe, like, share, and leave comments. Here's looking at you, kid. Hello again, my lovelies. Thank you so much for watching that video. It really means a lot. Well, what can I say? Keep the smile going, do remember to subscribe and ring that bell. It helps out like you wouldn't believe. It just makes me so happy. Can you see this big smile of mine? Keep calm, carry on, keep a stiff upper lip, and if you like, there's another channel in the description. Almighty answers. Definitely worth a watch. Best of British to you, pip pip cheerio, and until next time, here's looking at you, kid.